The night of July 28th, 2024, was different from all the others. My small apartment in the quiet suburban neighborhood felt unusually still. As I sank into my worn-out armchair, an eerie sense of anticipation hung in the air. The hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of traffic seemed muted, almost as if the world was holding its breath. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table beside me, jolting me from my thoughts. Glancing at the screen, I saw an unknown number. My curiosity piqued. I picked up the phone and opened the message. What I saw was a jumble of letters and numbers, completely unintelligible. My heart skipped a beat, a mixture of confusion and curiosity washing over me. Who would send something like this? It didn't seem like a mistake. Unable to shake the unease, I opened my laptop and began searching for ways to decode the message. The more I looked, the more it seemed like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Hours passed, the clock on the wall ticking away relentlessly. My living room, usually a place of comfort, now felt like a prison, the walls closing in as my frustration grew. As the night deepened, I finally made some progress. The first few characters started to make sense, forming a cryptic warning. My pulse quickened as I realized this wasn't a mistake. Someone had sent this to me on purpose. The room felt colder, the shadows in the corners darker and more menacing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Determined to understand the full message, I continued working, the flickering light of my laptop casting eerie shadows around the room. Every sound seemed amplified, the creak of the floorboards, the distant hum of traffic, the rustling of leaves outside my window. The sense of foreboding grew stronger with each passing minute, but I couldn't stop. I had to know what the message meant and who had sent it. The next morning, my apartment was a mess. Papers with scribbled notes, books on cryptography, and my laptop surrounded me. I hadn't slept. The mysterious message had consumed me. My eyes burned from the strain, but I couldn't stop. The cryptic warning I had decoded hinted at something dangerous, and I needed to know more. I spent the day poring over the message, trying to decipher the rest. The more I worked on it, the more obsessed I became. Frustration mounted as the coded text seemed to mock my efforts. Every small breakthrough was followed by hours of dead ends. My mind raced with possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. The walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in, the clutter and chaos mirroring my spiraling thoughts. By the evening, I had decoded a significant portion of the message. It spoke of a hidden truth, a warning about something lurking in the shadows. Fear mingled with my determination. The message felt personal, as if it was meant solely for me. The air in the room grew thick with tension, every sound amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, even the ticking of the clock seemed to press down on me. I took a break, stepping out to get some fresh air. The world outside felt alien, the normalcy of it contrasting sharply with the turmoil inside me. I wandered to a local coffee shop, hoping the change of scenery would clear my mind. But even there, the coded message lingered at the forefront of my thoughts, an unsolvable riddle gnawing at my sanity. As I sat in the coffee shop, sipping my drink, I noticed a stranger watching me. Their gaze was intense, unsettling. When they approached, a chill ran down my spine. Without introducing themselves, they whispered, "You're in danger. The message, it's not what it seems." My heart raced. The stranger's words confirmed my worst fears. Before I could ask more, they slipped a note into my hand and left. The note contained another coded message, more complex than the first. The stranger's sudden departure left me rattled. Clutching the note, I rushed back to my apartment, my mind racing with questions. The cafe, once a place of calm, now felt tainted by the stranger's ominous warning. I shoved the note into my bag and hurried home, my thoughts a jumble of fear and confusion. Back in my apartment, I unrolled the new note, the fresh coded message staring back at me with a menacing calm. The complexity of the code was overwhelming. My frustration flared again as I attempted to decipher it, but each attempt only seemed to deepen the mystery. The room grew colder, shadows lengthening as the evening light waned. I felt a gnawing sense of paranoia creeping over me, a feeling that I wasn't alone in the room. I tried to focus, the new message indicating that I should meet someone at a specific location if I wanted more answers. The note's instructions were cryptic, hinting at a hidden truth that could be uncovered at a secluded spot on the edge of town. Doubts and fears battled within me. Was it a trap? The sense of danger was palpable, but my curiosity was overpowering. By the time night fell, the quiet of the apartment was replaced by the distant, eerie sounds of the city. I prepared myself for the meeting, gathering my things and trying to calm my racing heart. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to grow darker, their oppressive presence a constant reminder of the unknown. As I left for the meeting, the streets outside felt different, the usual familiarity now tinged with a sense of dread. The sense that I was being watched returned, every passing car and pedestrian feeling like a potential threat. I tried to push the fear aside, focusing on the task at hand. The promise of answers kept me moving, despite the gnawing anxiety in my chest. The drive to the abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town was unsettling. The streets, usually bustling with activity, felt deserted. The further I ventured, the more desolate the surroundings became. The warehouse loomed in the distance, its silhouette dark and foreboding against the night sky. My headlights cast long shadows on the crumbling walls, adding to the eerie atmosphere. I parked my car and approached the warehouse cautiously. The large, rusting gates were ajar, creaking softly in the night breeze. I hesitated at the entrance, the weight of the message and the stranger's warning pressing heavily on me. With a deep breath, I stepped inside. The dim light from my phone illuminated the path ahead, revealing broken glass and debris scattered across the floor. The interior of the warehouse was a maze of rusted machinery and abandoned crates. The air was thick with dust, and the only sounds were the occasional scurrying of rats and the distant hum of the city. Each step echoed loudly in the cavernous space, making me feel even more isolated. My flashlight flickered intermittently, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. As I ventured deeper, I discovered several handwritten notes pinned to the walls. They were filled with cryptic symbols and warnings, their messages more alarming than the last. A chilling draft swept through the warehouse, making the old wooden beams creak and groan. The sense of being watched intensified, and every creak and rustle seemed amplified, heightening my anxiety. I found a table in the center of the warehouse, covered with more coded messages and photographs of people I didn't recognize. The sight sent a shiver down my spine. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the complete picture remained elusive. A sudden noise behind me made me freeze, my heart pounding as I spun around, only to find an empty, darkened corner. The warehouse was eerily silent, except for the distant sounds of the city. I continued examining the table, trying to make sense of the scattered papers and photographs. The photos were of random people, some with strange symbols scrawled across their faces. It was clear that someone had been watching them, but why? I focused on one photograph in particular. It showed a familiar street corner near my apartment, taken from a vantage point that seemed unnervingly close. The realization hit me like a cold wave. Someone had been watching me too. The room felt colder, the shadows lengthening as if they were creeping closer. I searched the rest of the warehouse, hoping to find more clues. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional scuffle of rats and the creaking of old metal. My flashlight flickered again, casting brief, unsettling shadows across the walls. Every corner seemed to hide secrets, and the deeper I went, the more I felt the walls closing in. I discovered a hidden door behind a stack of crates. It was slightly ajar, as if someone had hastily left it open. My pulse quickened as I pushed it open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. Inside, there was a single chair facing a wall, covered with more coded messages and a small, old-fashioned safe. The room had a musty smell, the air heavy with dust. I approached the safe, my hands trembling. The combination lock stared back at me, its presence both menacing and tantalizing. I knew that opening it could reveal the answers I was desperate for, but the fear of what might be inside was paralyzing. I glanced at the messages on the wall, which seemed to form a pattern leading to the safe. With a deep breath, I began to work on the combination. As I unlocked the safe, a strange sound echoed through the warehouse, like a distant, rhythmic thudding. The noise grew louder, and my heart raced. I had the feeling that someone, or something, was approaching. The safe's door creaked open, revealing a stack of documents in a single envelope. I reached for the envelope, but before I could open it, the rhythmic thudding became deafening, and the lights in the warehouse flickered out. In the sudden darkness, panic surged through me. I fumbled for my flashlight, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The rhythmic thudding continued, growing louder with each passing second. It felt as though something, or someone, was drawing closer. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. The warehouse, which had felt unsettling before, now seemed like a labyrinth of impending doom. When I finally managed to turn on my flashlight, the beam cut through the darkness, revealing a scene that sent chills down my spine. The safe was open, but the envelope inside was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there were more photographs and documents, some of which were recent. My heart sank as I realized the implications. Whoever was behind this had been tracking my every move. I glanced around the room, the oppressive darkness amplifying every creak and rustle. The rhythmic thudding had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that was even more unsettling. I tried to gather my thoughts, knowing I needed to leave before whatever had caused the noise arrived. I quickly gathered the documents and photographs, shoving them into my bag. As I headed towards the exit, I heard a soft rustling sound behind me. My flashlight flickered, and the shadows seemed to twist and writhe as if alive. The sensation of being watched was overwhelming, and I moved faster, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. The warehouse seemed to stretch endlessly, the familiar paths now confusing and treacherous. I finally reached the main exit, but the door wouldn't budge. I pushed and pulled with all my strength, but it remained stubbornly closed. Panic set in as I realized that I was trapped. The rhythmic thudding returned, louder and more urgent. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned around, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. Suddenly, the warehouse lights flickered back on, revealing a figure standing at the far end of the room. The figure was cloaked in shadows, their face obscured. The sight was enough to freeze me in place. I was no longer alone, and the sense of dread was overwhelming. The figure stepped forward, and the warehouse seemed to close in around me. The figure slowly emerged from the shadows, their face still hidden in the darkness. My flashlight flickered as I tried to make out any distinguishing features, but the dim light was insufficient. The rhythmic thudding had stopped, replaced by an ominous silence that pressed heavily on my nerves. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice wavering despite my attempt to sound assertive. The figure didn't respond immediately, their presence a palpable threat. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat echoing through the quiet warehouse. The feeling of being watched intensified, making me feel exposed and vulnerable. The figure stepped closer, and the dim light revealed a hint of a mask or hood, adding to the sense of menace. My instincts screamed at me to run, but the door was still jammed. I turned my attention back to the safe, hoping there was something inside that could help me. The documents and photographs were scattered on the floor, but I couldn't afford to sift through them now. The figure finally spoke, their voice a low, distorted whisper. "You shouldn't have come here." The message was a warning, not an invitation. The words sent a shiver down my spine. The sense of danger was overwhelming, and I could feel the walls of the warehouse pressing in on me, adding to the claustrophobic atmosphere. I backed away from the figure, trying to stay calm despite the rising panic. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, my voice cracking. The figure remained silent for a moment, their presence a constant, looming threat. The tension was unbearable, each second stretching into eternity. With a sudden, swift movement, the figure turned and disappeared into the darkness. The warehouse seemed to exhale, the oppressive atmosphere lifting slightly. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. The lights flickered again before stabilizing. Desperate to escape, I shoved at the door with renewed strength. After several agonizing moments, it creaked open, revealing the night outside. I stumbled into the cool air, my mind reeling from the encounter. The warehouse was now behind me, but the sense of dread lingered. I glanced back at the building, its dark silhouette a reminder of the danger I had narrowly escaped. I had to find out what the documents meant and what role I played in this unsettling mystery. The following morning was no better. I awoke with a sense of dread, the night's events still vivid in my mind. I tried to shake off the lingering fear, but the sense that something was terribly wrong wouldn't fade. As I made my way to the kitchen, the documents and photographs from the warehouse were spread out on the dining table, a stark reminder of the danger that lurked. I decided to revisit the notes, hoping that a fresh perspective might help me uncover their meaning. As I sifted through the papers, I noticed that some of the photographs were missing. My heart skipped a beat. The photos had been crucial, each one a piece of the puzzle. The thought that someone had been in my apartment while I was asleep sent a shiver down my spine. The realization hit me like a cold wave. I wasn't safe in my own home. The sense of violation was overwhelming. I quickly checked the rest of the apartment, every room and closet, but there were no signs of forced entry. Whoever had taken the photos had done so quietly and with precision, further fueling my anxiety. I attempted to contact the local authorities, but my calls went unanswered. The realization that I was alone in this made the situation even more dire. I tried to piece together what I had left of the documents, but the missing photos were a significant blow. My only option was to return to the warehouse and search for more clues, hoping to find something that might explain the disappearance. As I drove back to the warehouse, the fear of encountering the cloaked figure again gnawed at me. The sense of being watched was almost palpable, and the streets, once familiar, now felt hostile. I knew I had to be cautious. The danger was real, and the stakes were higher than I had ever imagined. Returning to the warehouse felt like walking into the heart of darkness. The once foreboding structure now seemed like an impenetrable fortress of secrets. My breath came in shallow bursts as I approached, the shadows of the warehouse stretching out like dark fingers. The missing photographs and documents weighed heavily on my mind, and I knew that I needed to find answers before it was too late. Inside, the warehouse was eerily quiet, the oppressive silence broken only by the distant hum of machinery. I carefully navigated the debris-laden floor, each step echoing in the cavernous space. The once familiar setting now felt alien and threatening. I retraced my steps to the small room with the hidden safe, hoping that there might be something I missed during my previous visit. To my dismay, the small room was untouched, the safe still open and empty. The sense of urgency grew as I scanned the walls for any additional clues. The coded messages and photographs that had once seemed so crucial now felt like fragments of a puzzle that was slipping through my fingers. My frustration and fear were palpable, and the shadows in the warehouse seemed to grow darker and more oppressive. As I prepared to leave, a final, ominous message appeared on the wall. It was a simple phrase, but its impact was profound. "You are the final piece." The words sent a chill down my spine. I understood then that I had been part of a larger plan, but the nature of that plan remained shrouded in mystery. The warehouse had been a stage for a sinister game, and I was its unwitting participant. I stumbled out of the warehouse, my mind reeling from the implications of the message. The sense of danger was overwhelming, and the realization that I had been manipulated left me feeling hollow and betrayed. As I drove away, the city lights seemed distant and unreal, a stark contrast to the darkness that had consumed my life. The final revelation was not just about uncovering the truth, but about coming to terms with the fact that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved.